Welcome, my friends, to sunny and beautiful California, where rolling blackouts threaten local residents, where plague has reemerged for the first time in 5 years, and homelessness is a rampant and ongoing problem. My friends, I give you one-party control of a state. Now, to be fair, I'm not going to blame California for natural disasters. I didn't mention in that little opening segment the wildfires that are underway and the massive heat wave, because for the most part, those things you can't really control. I mean, you can make some arguments about climate change and stuff like that, but I'm not going to blame, Newsom or Garcetti because it's hot outside. I mean, that happens. But when it comes to plague, to be fair, that is kind of an act of nature. But there is a serious problem with California and one-party control where they can't deal with the problems that they're facing. It is because of their policies they're facing rolling blackouts. It is because of their policies they have a massive homelessness problem, which creates a serious risk with the reemergence of plague. For quite some time, people have been concerned that because of all the homelessness, there'd be rats running around and there would be a typhoid outbreak, and then there was. There was. Now, because of COVID, which I'm not going to blame California for, we see way more homeless people, way more homelessness. Now, I can blame them for the homelessness because this has been an ongoing problem they have not been able to solve. And I think it's due to the fact there's no political competition. There's no one offering up any alternatives to Californians as to solve these problems. So the only direction they can go is left. And we should look to California for what the future of our country could be if there is no right wing. Just a overpowered left wing dominating social media, dominating mainstream media and our corporations, and a weakened right that is continually getting banned and removed from the conversation. This is what will happen if the left just runs rampant without any checks. The Republicans and the right are not always correct, but you need an argument from both sides to make sure when we do progress, we progress in a way that benefits us, not in a way that results in stage 2 emergencies because of rolling blackouts. Now, many people are going to come up and say, Tim, the rolling blackouts are because of the heat wave. That's not fair. Oh, I know this. Also, for just to be fair, they successfully navigated this without any blackouts yesterday. So good for them. But why do they have to declare these emergencies? You see, the Wall Street Journal wrote about this a couple weeks ago when it did happen. And I'll tell you, it's because of their policies. And in my opinion, it's because we have entered this realm of politics where Democrats and Republicans don't want to bother fighting for certain areas. California, it's 2/3 Democrat. Why bother? We'll never win there again, say Republicans. And thus, and I mean in many of these big cities. Obviously, there are Republican parts of California. But because of this, Republicans don't bother fighting in Los Angeles counties or things like that. In many jurisdictions like AOC's, for instance, they don't really even have any Republican contender. This is all changing now, and I think it's a really good and healthy thing for this country, especially considering how insane the left has already gotten. But let's take a look at some of these stories, and then we'll talk about the nature of politics and how it's affecting it by highlighting how the Wall Street Journal says their policies have caused these rolling blackouts. Take a look at this. This is yesterday. Rolling blackouts likely, with California power grid expected to near record demand due to extreme heat. They say, though Californians on Saturday avoided rolling blackouts, Sunday's extreme heat threatens to bring record-breaking demand for energy that could strain the state's power grids. The California Independent System Operator, which runs the electrical grid for most of the state, declared a stage 2 emergency around 6 p.m. and said rotating power outages are likely on Sunday. Declaring an emergency allows the grid operator to use reserve power and tap into emergency assistance from neighboring authorities. The ISO called the emergency after a transmission line carrying power from Oregon to California and another part of the state power plant went offline unexpectedly, the operator said in a news release. Okay, human error, mistakes, sometimes things break. I don't know, but that is not an act of nature. As California sweltered under triple-digit temperatures and officials grapple with fire-caused power grid system failures, the state is working to free up energy capacity during the Labor Day weekend, according to Governor Gavin Newsom's office. Here's my favorite part about all this. It's Labor Day. How's your Labor Day going? We're going to be firing up the grill soon. I hope you guys are doing something similar. You got a lot of people who want to go to the beach. Now, in California, they got very, very strict COVID rules. I don't know how it pertains to beaches. I know that there was a story running in the Daily Mail that New York was planning on arresting tons of people because it's Labor Day weekend and people want to go to the beach. So think about that. You've got an electrical crisis. You need people to turn the power off because the grid's going to fail. And then when people are like, hey, how about we go outside? You're like, whoa, COVID, man. So there you go. Rocking a hard place, I'll tell you what. But let's talk about what's going on. Actually, hold on. We got more. They say to reduce demand, the state is asking large commercial and public energy consumers to shift their usage away from peak hours. On Thursday, the governor declared a state of emergency, suspending regulations to create more energy and reduce demand on the grid in order to stave off potential blackouts. And there it is. Suspend regulations. I love it. Guess what? It ain't gonna work. You know why? Because those fossil fuel power plants that you regulated ceased to exist because they were regulated. Oh, I love it. You know what, man? I am all about renewable energies. But there are serious questions that I have asked and many others have asked. How are you going to store power at night when there's no sun? What if there is no wind? What if your geothermal eventually runs out? I don't know. Actually, geothermal lasts a really long time, so that's probably a dumb one. But what are you going to do? And not everywhere has access to geothermal energy or a place where they can, essentially get geothermal. You need batteries. And that means you need way better battery tech. And we're working on this, and I'm excited for it. And I'd love to see us get away from renewable energies. And I think nuclear energy is a massively underutilized tool. And it's because of the left. Man, I tell you, we can't win on this one, can we? You complain about carbon emissions. We say, what about new technologies in nuclear energy so that we can generate tons of energy and not have to worry about carbon emissions? Say nuclear is bad and dangerous and we're scared. Okay, well then, if you want to regulate something, regulate safety protocols for nuclear power plants. Something like that, right? Well, let's jump over. First, to be fair, I want to make sure I can highlight. Wait. No, that's them making fun of Garcetti. I want to make sure I highlight the temperatures. Okay, they hit the highest temperature on record ever. One area, 121 degrees. So to be fair, even with the changes they've made, I don't think anybody expected 121 degrees to hit California. But here's what we get. California's blackout warning from the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal opinion section. Anti-fossil fuel mandates are leading to electricity shortages. It's time to get out of California, man. It is. Look, I think humans have to be particularly careful about how we extract resources and the impact we are having on the rest of this planet. We are seeing ocean fisheries. We get a lot of our food from there are starting to collapse. They're being replaced by jellyfish. It's kind of gross. People have started eating jellyfish. Also kind of gross. But I'll tell you what, food's food. If you think jellyfish is gross, maybe you just haven't tried it. I don't know. Jellyfish is mostly nothing, so we'll see how that plays out. But I think humans can adapt. I think we can survive most things. But I am somebody who thinks we must protect the ecosystem. This planet is not just people. Trees have to function. The animals within these forests and jungles have to function. So I'm all about protecting the environment. However, some people have asked an interesting question. What's the point of protecting the environment to save humans if humans don't exist? If humans curtail themselves and it creates more suffering and death, well, we got a serious problem. I'll tell you what, we do have problems. I mean, humans have kids. We reproduce. We're successful, like really successful. We got tons of food. We take over more space. We expand rapidly. How do we deal with that? Perhaps the answer is with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Musk, of course, wants to go to Mars. Trump wants to do the what is it called? The Artemis project, I think, where we go to the moon and then from the moon to Mars. These things are really important in helping humans survive without decimating the planet. But in their zealousness, the left has enacted policies before we were ready to do so, I guess. You take a look at people like Greta Thunberg, and she says, shut it all down. No fossil fuels. We're not going to wait till 2030. We don't even want to wait till 2021. Do it now. People will die. And now we're seeing a glimpse of this. Y'all need to calm down. Now, I am absolutely in favor of curtailing carbon emissions. Hey, nuclear energy, how about that? Let's talk to China. Let's talk to India. But this is what you get. Let me read this. They say electricity blackouts are awful at any time, but especially during an extreme heat wave and for reasons that are man-made. That's what millions in California have been enduring in recent days. And their plight is a warning to the rest of America about the risks of Green New Deal policies. The California Independent System Operator, CAISO, which manages the state's power grid, declared a high-level emergency Friday and Saturday evenings and ordered utilities to reduce power usage. California and most of the southwestern U.S. are experiencing a severe heat wave, but other states are managing to keep power flowing. Why can't California? You see? Even though there's a natural disaster or some kind of natural phenomenon, other states are fine. Now, mind you, this is from August. It's happening again a month later. You'd think they'd figure something out by now. They say California last experienced rolling blackouts in 2001 amid energy market manipulation by speculators. This time, the cause is energy market manipulation by anti-fossil fuel politicians. Democrats have mandated that renewables account for 60% of state electricity by 2030, which has forced power providers to invest in renewable energy sources now to meet the deadline. The result is something of a Rube Goldberg physics experiment. During peak daylight hours, California produces a surplus of solar energy, and power generators may be ordered or paid to cut back their production so the grid isn't overloaded. On Friday and Saturday, CAISO reported about 1,000 megawatt hours were curtailed, enough to power 30,000 homes. This year, 1.3 million megawatt hours of power have been curtailed. That's a lot of power. But this means supply shortages can occur in the evening when solar energy plunges, but demand for power remains high. That's what happened this weekend. Many natural gas and nuclear plants that can generate power 24/7 have shut down in recent years because they can't compete with heavily subsidized green energy. Nuclear energy is green energy, okay? We've got to get people to realize this. Nuclear energy does not produce carbon emissions. It is green in that regard. A 10-year-old natural gas power plant, and I'm pretty sure natural gas doesn't either. I'm pretty sure natural gas burns off clean, doesn't it? Becomes like water? I don't know. You know what? I'm sorry, man. I don't know enough about this. They say a 10-year-old natural gas power plant in California's Inland Empire is being decommissioned this year, 20 to 30 years earlier than its planned lifespan. State water regulations are also forcing the shutdown of peaker plants along the coast that can quickly ramp up generation when the sun goes down. This is why the Public Utilities Commission last year warned the state could face an energy shortage as early as 2021 on hot summer evenings. Well, it happened a year early. I love it. This is one-party rule. Look what's happening in the Democrat states. We've been locked down for how long? It's insane. You go to Florida and you're at the movies having a cheeseburger like normal. Well, so I hear. I live in New Jersey, which has been nothing but psychotic authoritarian lockdown. You have these Democrats who are like, I refuse to take responsibility, therefore we do nothing. And that's what's been happening in California. Case in point, the NIMBY problem in Los Angeles pertaining to homelessness. They all say, well, we're going to solve the homeless problem and help all of these people. And then once they get elected, as per usual, they go, hey, not in my backyard. I'm not going to do anything about it because I don't want to be responsible. If I build affordable housing for homeless people and mental health facilities to try and help them, the neighbor's property value will go down and they'll get mad at me. So how about I do literally nothing and say, but you can't blame me because other people are homeless. My favorite part is how they try and deflect as much of the blame onto other people as possible. They say, this is why the Pacific warned in 2021 on hot summer evenings, the power could go out. That day has arrived a year early. Congratulations to Democrats for beating their own forecasts. Bravo. What is it? A year early and under budget. Not in a good way, though. When they can't get it, Californians already pay twice as much for electricity as Washingtonians, and a third more than Nevadans, because the spot price for power in the summer can surge more than 30-fold from noon to dusk. Utilities are building expensive batteries to store solar energy that can be released in the evening, which is cool. They say that will save money, but that's also what they said about Jerry Brown's failed bullet train. Yikes. To sum up, California's antipathy, even to natural gas and nuclear power, has resulted in higher energy prices and now power surpluses and shortages because renewables are intermittent energy sources. The Sacramento Democrats want to take this policy nationwide via Joe Biden, so prepare for hot summer nights. This is one of the reasons why I am no fan of Joe Biden. Yes, and I believe Kamala Harris, they're also in favor of these policies. Listen, early on when they announced the Green New Deal, there was nothing behind it. They were like, we just want the government to invest in green technology. And I'm like, that's a good idea. I like that idea. You know, if we can reallocate to better technology, regardless of the technology, better living through technology, right? The problem is when they put these timetable mandates. You can't mandate technology be developed. That makes literally no sense. They're like, We're going to end fossil fuels right now with renewable energy, even though there's nothing to replace it. So people are going to suffer because of that. Now, I understand hard decisions sometimes have to be made. And you would be a fool if you thought there would never be a sacrifice for the greater good. But we want to avoid that to the best of our abilities. The challenge, I suppose, is the politics of climate change. In California, they say things like, we have no time. We must do this, even though China and India are going to keep going and won't stop. So what do you do when they don't? Honestly, I don't know, but I'll tell you this. Nuclear energy, natural gas, they're great. Why are they being shuttered? It's an inadvertent, it's an unintended consequence, I suppose, of mass subsidies for solar and wind power. Now, that kind of sucks. I got to be honest. I think subsidizing in solar and wind can be a good thing, but maybe what we really need is market competition. Maybe there's a point where the government realizes you can't just pay things. Command economies don't work. Now, I'm all in favor of a mixed economy. Okay, communism and socialism are command economies where a centralized group determines where the resources go. That results in major problems because one person or a committee is nowhere near as powerful in terms of their ability to calculate than a decentralized, distributed network of individuals who make choices that move in a certain direction. I think we need the government to make sure we're not building things that will kill us because someone needs to pay attention to that stuff. You know, if you have no centralized focus at all, well, then you can run amok and you could do, things that could be really damaging to the planet. But if you go into the command economy space where they're like, let's take money from people by force and then build these things that we think are better, therein lies the big problem. Here's what I think needs to happen. Well, actually, I should walk that back. I don't know if I'm smart enough to tell you what should happen, but I will tell you this. We can't rush into these things. And the concern from the left is very zealous. They keep telling us we have 12 years, we have 10 years, we have 8 years, but I've been hearing that my entire life. I think we'll adapt, and we are facing serious problems, but I don't think the world is ending. I think that's kind of nuts. If we follow this path of California, it's going to hit the rest of the country. The scariest part about all of this is that we're told routinely California is the future of the rest of this country. That what happens in California a few years later happens to the rest of the country. Now, that's a scary prospect because the zealotry of these of these individuals reacting emotionally results in poor planning. Was it the intent to shut down nuclear power plants? I don't think it was. Maybe it was. They hate nuclear power too, and that's ridiculous. Listen, we have a lot of humans. They're alive. They have rights. And we want to make sure that their needs are met. They tell us at the same time they want to end poverty. But that's literally impossible to do because poverty is relative to the current state of our standard of living. No, if you took everybody from today and brought them back, every single person to like the year 1900, they would all be the richest people in existence at the time. If you took everybody from 1900 and brought them here today, they would all be considered, for the most part, poor, even the richest people, because they didn't have access to any of the things we do, like TVs, air conditioning, refrigerators, clean running water. Even the wealthy people barely had access to the things we do. They didn't have planes, so they couldn't fly wherever they wanted. We can. They'd come here and be like, I've never flown before. I've never been able to fly. And that's, well, not necessarily poverty, but it kind of is. So the point is, right now, with all these initiatives coming from the left, what they're doing actually is making homelessness worse. Straight up. Policies have made the problem worse. They seem to think you can just shove people in hotels like they do in New York. That's not the issue. You got a lot of problems. They've made the issue from this. They've made the issue of disease spread worse. Now we've got poop patrol in San Francisco. We've got power plants shutting down. And I'll tell you what, man, I've been to California and I've seen some of the issues during the drought. One of the things they want to do was desalination. They want to pump water from the ocean, filter out the salt, and spit the brine back out. And that kills the bottom. It creates dead zones because what happens is the brine sinks to the bottom in the ocean, on the shoreline, killing all of the ground level plants and animals, and then everything above it can't eat, so then they die too. And a lot of people are concerned. Activists are like, dude, you can't just do this. But we need water. Yes, we do. There are serious problems that we're facing, and California is an example of what not to do. We need market competition, and we need entrepreneurial individuals with a pioneer spirit to eventually say California is just too much right now. There's not enough space. There's not enough water. The heat is too much. It's time to leave. But instead, what happens? They stay there. They demand aid from the federal government. They demand that we make ridiculous changes to the power grid, and everyone suffers because of it. You get mass homelessness, and instead of solving the problem, they say throw money at it, and they don't solve the problem. What needs to happen is people need to leave finally. Stop saying you must save me and say I'm going to leave and go find my own way to survive. Otherwise, you will just keep experiencing worse and worse problems. Because if people in California just stay and keep doing what they're doing and demanding more help and assistance, it will only get worse. I think one of the biggest problems we have right now is not overpopulation. It's overly dense population in key areas. And that's why there's a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to COVID. People are fleeing California, especially with the heat wave and the power outages. People are saying enough. So maybe that's what will really happen. Their policies failed. People will leave. And that's it. The problem I see is these people will leave and take their policies with them. You should learn a lesson. I'm not convinced they will. But I'll tell you, man, I don't know when California will finally have a reckoning. But I will say it is incumbent upon Republicans to actually spend money challenging these deep blue areas of the country. Not because I agree with them, but because we need political competition. We're starting to see it. I'm excited for it. I want to see AOC run because she wins the primary, right? And then she goes, once she won the primary, she's like, I've been elected to Congress. And it's like, no, you didn't. You won like 15,000 votes. You're in a district of 750,000. You didn't win anything. Oh, but no one is running against you. How absurd. People need to challenge her. There are Republicans in NY14, and I want to see those debates. And they should happen. And the people need to hear these ideas, because if they don't know the ideas exist, they won't know they like them, or they won't entertain them. And you will get more one-party rule in key areas, and it will just be bad. Let's shake everything up a little bit. And I mean that in a good way, like people can get up and move. And it's happening. So I'm actually excited to see what comes from this. Now, I feel bad for the people of California, but hey, you reap what you sow. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.